I'm Gary Stearman, and today we're speaking with Avi Lipkin. And Avi, it's really good to see you again. Tell us where you're coming from in Israel and how things are going for you and your family.
Okay, well, firstly, I live in a little community called Kedar, which is about 2 miles from Ma'ale Adumim. Ma'ale Adumim is halfway between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea. So we're living here in the middle of the desert. I think it's one of the reasons why we are doing so well, because the missile attacks from Gaza don't probably think that my house or my community is an attractive target. So, they fire, Ashdod and Ashkelon and the places nearby, even Jerusalem. They shoot at Jerusalem sometimes. But we are kind of like just, I wouldn't say out of range, but we're out of range as far as their strategy goes.
Avi, I'd like for you to explain to our audience exactly what's going on in Israel. And by that, I mean, give us a large-scale sense of what is happening, how it's developing, and what we can expect. And I know that you have a very, very broad view of what's going on, and a view that takes you across the years, across the decades, up to the present time. So give us the big picture.
Firstly, this attack or this war, which started this last Saturday, it is probably the biggest surprise that we have had since, I would say, since World War II.
Wow.
In World War II, we could not defend ourselves. What happened on Saturday was that thousands of Gaza terrorists came across the border and they overwhelmed 20 settlements. And these settlements really are not armed. In other words, they have arms, but the arms are in armories in each settlement. And you have to release the arms. And a number of things happened that our people in the kibbutzim, in the settlements, in the communities, were totally taken by surprise by these terrorists, and they were slaughtered by the terrorists. Even some people were decapitated. Little children were decapitated. Soldiers were decapitated. There were videos, authentic videos of all of this. They showed it to President Biden. They showed it to Secretary of State Blinken. And this is a horrible, barbaric behavior of Hamas, which is very much like ISIS. So if Americans understand ISIS, then they have to understand Hamas. So this is what we're facing. And so the decision has been taken. I don't know if they're going to carry it out all the way, but to take out Hamas, Gaza has a population of 2 million, but the Hamas is 50,000. And so, the people themselves are people like any other people, but you cannot rise up and have a normal government as long as these 50,000 Hamas terrorists are running the show. Anyone who protests gets killed immediately. It's really like Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia. And so Israel, I think, is in a process now which the U.S. government actually understands and supports, that Hamas has to be taken out.
Now, concerning the Israel Defense Forces and the Israeli government, there's been the sense that the government of Israel is a bit at odds right now. That is, there's not a strong centralized idea behind what's going on. And the Knesset has been having its ups and downs, and Bibi Netanyahu has been having his ups and downs. And I guess my question is Israel prepared now to make a comeback and quickly solve this problem, or are we looking at something bigger?
I don't like to talk about what I'm going to talk about. But we have a political problem in Israel, an internal political problem. And indeed, you know me since 1992. And so we go back 30 years. And one of the reasons I came to do shows with you 30 years ago was because I got fired at the prime minister's office under Yitzhak Shamir by socialist administrators. And Israel has been rock solid control of the socialists in the civil service. And when I was supposed to get tenure, they said to me, "Oh, you're never going to get tenure because you are Likud, you are right wing, and we are going to make sure to it that you never, ever again have a job in Israel." And so who took me in? You guys, the Christians took me in. So I've been speaking in Christian churches and doing TV with you and other ministries. And there is still to this day exists a socialist dictatorship in the civil service. And what happens is you heard about the judicial reform bill of the Likud, which sparked tremendous protests in the streets of Tel Aviv and other places. And the problem here is, unlike America, in America, you have Supreme Court justices, which, it's usually 50-50. And each president who comes in brings in 2 or 3 of his own judges, and there's no problem. And it balances out. Here in Israel, all our judges are communists. All our judges are socialists. And there's absolutely no toleration for judges who are right-wing or conservative. And so this applies to the judiciary. This applies to the military. All the generals in the Israeli army are socialists. You cannot rise above colonel in the Israeli military if you are right-wing. And so all the people surrounding Netanyahu are socialists. Ehud Barak, who's calling openly for a civil war in Israel. Ehud Barak is saying there will be blood in the streets of Israel. There will be blood in the Yarkon River. He's calling for a civil war. He's calling for the killing of many, many Jewish people to fight against Netanyahu. Netanyahu represents the majority of the population. The problem here is I've been in Israel 55 years. The problem is over these 55 years, I personally have seen the growth of the religious section and the conservative section. And the socialists have one child and one dog, just like Ataturk's Turkey had. And so the fundamentalist Muslims took over in Turkey. So here what's happening is that the religious and the nationalists are overwhelmingly the majority now.
Wow.
But the socialists still control all of the main positions.
Now, I take it this attack came totally as a surprise. That is the picture we're being given here in the United States. It looked like a total surprise, and that which really surprises me, I think of Israeli intelligence as being among the highest functioning in the whole wide world. How did this happen? How did such a surprise ever take place?
Okay, here we go. In America, one of the reasons I love America, America has its faults, but one of the reasons I love America is because you have term limits for the president. So every 4 to 8 years, you have some kind of a change, you have some kind of a rotation. Here in Israel, you have the same socialist hierarchies for the last 100 years, and they have the same concepts all the time. So in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, 50 years ago, they said, "Oh, the Egyptians will never attack. Oh, the Syrians will never attack." And we were caught with our pants down. So what happened on Saturday was exactly the same thing. The same communists, socialists, totalitarians, with no toleration for any other viewpoints, with their concepts. They said the same thing about the Gaza Arabs. And the crazy thing here is, number one, the Egyptians warned certain people in the military, and it seems like the message did not get passed down, or passed up to the high command. Or it could be that there are people at the top in the military who knew about it. They wanted it to happen so that Netanyahu would be blamed for it, and that would mean Netanyahu would have to resign, or there will be a civil war in this country and they'll kill him. So I'm very, very concerned about where this country is going. We are in a terrible situation now internally in this country. As far as the army goes, our soldiers are the best. And as long as you're talking about combat commanders, they're the best. So the problem is not the combat commanders or the soldiers. The problem is the generals who all have to go through the filter of the socialist hierarchy. I think in America you'd call it the deep state.
Yes, indeed. And the deep state has gotten a lot of press lately, and probably will continue to get press. Changing the subject a bit, our audience here at Prophecy Watchers is a Christian audience, and we are in prayer. Christians in America and in other places are in prayer for Israel. And I'd like for you to tell us, what should we be praying for as American Christians, Christians around the world?
Okay, well, firstly, I definitely believe in Christian prayer. I've been working in Christian churches and radio and TV stations like yours for the last 33 years. And I have felt the love of the Christians. I have felt the prayers of the Christians. And here in Israel, we need every prayer we can get. I even tried to organize a Christian paramilitary force to come and fight alongside us. It was vetoed by the rabbis. They didn't want Christian missionaries. I said, listen, today we're almost 10 million, but the Muslims are 1.5 billion. We need the Christians alongside us. But as far as praying, you have to pray for Israel to have the mercy of God, the leadership of God. Everything is, in my opinion, I have a very unusual Avi Lipkin opinion, but I believe God is at the center of everything. And I believe, I know some people will totally disagree with me, but America is God's greatest country on earth because of its Christianity. And we believe that we are tied at the hip with you guys. So I'm totally in support of any kind of prayer that Christians can pray for Israel so that we can overcome this problem now. And don't forget, the war could expand to Hezbollah in Lebanon and, of course, to Iran. And I will say something else. I don't want to start a controversy here, but the war with Iran is also important because when the Iranian regime falls, the Iranian people are good people. Iranians were always allies of the Jews over thousands of years. When the Ayatollah regime falls, Russia loses a tremendous ally. And this connects directly with the war in the Ukraine. So this is maybe one of the reasons why the aircraft carrier task force group, Gerald Ford, and I think Eisenhower force, they're all coming here now. So we may be seeing, I think what you guys call it, the Psalm 83 war. Could be. You never know.
In other words, you are not ruling out the possibility that this war could grow rapidly and in a very large way.
I think it will. On the other hand, what happens very often when the U.S. Navy comes to the Eastern Mediterranean, it's kind of like pouring cement on the different fights that are going on and kind of freezes things in place until the next volcanic eruption. But we are now in a terrible eruption with Gaza, and we're not going to stop until Hamas is pulverized. We are not against 2 million people in Gaza. We're against the 50,000 Hamas people.
Now, tell me about a little bit about Israeli society today. You know, we read about this invasion, and there was a music festival going on, and Hamas invaded the music festival and began gunning everybody down. And when we think of Israel, we think of kind of a lightheartedness. Israel has been enjoying economic well-being and social well-being. Tourism has been high. And then suddenly, in the midst of a music festival, people are being shot down. And I'd just like to know how this is affecting the mindset in Israel, societally speaking.
Well, the Israeli public, in response to this attack, is much stronger now in the opinion that we cannot just have, like in the past, just another ceasefire with Hamas. This is the Hamas group has to be totally obliterated. I kind of heard things that I think also that there should be some kind of a United Nations trusteeship in Gaza to give the people of Gaza a normal government interested in the well-being of the people of Gaza. You know, we don't want to destroy 2 million people. Because some people in media say that. No, we just want to get rid of the Hamas, which is they're ISIS. You can't have ISIS having a country. And these people came across the border, and you know what? They knew there was this music festival. And listen, Christians and Jews are rational people. We are Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy. These people are Islamic barbarians, and the only thing they understand is killing the Jew on Saturday, killing the Christian on Sunday. I've written 7 books about this. You guys sell my books. You know my story all these years that Judeo-Christianity is something that developed in the last 2,000 years, and it brought democracy and it brought well-being to the people. Why is America the richest country in the world? Why is it the most popular country in the world? All these people coming across the border illegally. Why are they coming to America? Because it's the best country in the world. Because America, not only because it supports Israel, America is a Christian country that has to be destroyed by Islam. This is completely crazy. These people are barbarian. Their religion, and you heard me say this, Islam is not a religion. It is a criminal psychosis. And Allah is not God. Allah is the devil. And I got a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland, commuted to 10 years probation. But, I'm proud of what I said. I said the right thing. And my Christian friends in Switzerland said to me that I deserve a medal.
Avi, I don't think most Americans really realize the depth of Islamic zeal. I know you do, and I know that you understand the behind-the-scenes developments that have been taking place in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. Give us a little idea of this zealousness, this single-mindedness in the Islamic world.
Okay, you'll forgive me if I ramble a little bit, but I'm going to say something and come back. Look at Russia. Russia is a country for the last 1,000 years has been autocratic. It has been tyrannical. It is a dictatorship. And there really, really is no possibility for the Russian people ever to become democratic. This applies to Islam. Islam has been around from the 7th century. They never had a Protestant Reformation. They never had a Magna Carta. They never had an Enlightenment or a Renaissance. Islam is the same Islam for the last 1,400 years because Allah is the devil. And the devil doesn't change. The devil is the greatest of the liars and deceivers. And that's what they say. Al-Makr, one of the names of Allah, is that Allah is the greatest of the liars and deceivers. Well, if you're a Christian, you know the greatest of the liars and deceivers is, it's Satan. And, God, our God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of the Jews and the Christians, loves the Jews, loves the Christians, loves all human beings created in his image. Allah hates the Jews, hates the Christians, wants the Jews dead on Saturday, Christians on Sunday, and the Hindus, the Buddhists, the blacks, and then the Muslims kill each other. This is not a religion. This is a psychosis built on the depopulation of the human race. Because Allah, when they say Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater, they cannot say Allah is greater as long as there's one human being left on the face of the earth.
Well, I think that about says it. I've been watching Israeli television a bit, and in the last few hours, I've noticed that the northern border of Israel is under scrutiny right now. That things might be happening on Israel's northern flank. What's happening there?
Well, firstly, you have to remember that the U.S. Navy is not too far, away, and their planes are able to come in and deal with Hezbollah. Hezbollah would be nothing without Iran. Iran has been giving them 150,000 missiles with precision to attack Israel. And so this is not so much a war about Gaza. This is not so much a war about Hezbollah in Lebanon. This is a war about Iran. And I think the United States would not be taking this so seriously if it weren't about Iran also. The situation with Hezbollah is, I think they are intimidated by the U.S. Navy. I think they're intimidated by what Israel could do to them. So at this point, it may be a deceptive calm, but it seems that Hezbollah is kind of like calmed down a little bit. What they did yesterday was they sent 20 drones into Israel. From what we have been told by our media, the drones did not have dynamite. They did not have any terrorists aboard them. Nobody was attacked. Nobody was injured. Nobody was killed. So people are saying that Nasrallah of Hezbollah was basically just trying to give us a hint that he has hundreds of drones. These drones made in Iran are able to attack Israel with dynamite, with terrorists. So, we are ready for war with Hezbollah, but we'll have to see. I don't think we're going to start it, but if they start it, they're going to get finished, like Gaza.
Now, you just mentioned Hezbollah, and I'd like for you to tell our audience I think they're used to hearing Hamas as the name of a group, but tell us the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah.
Well, primarily, it's very simple. The Hamas Muslims or Muslims are Sunni Muslims. The Sunnis go back to the four lieutenants, the four caliphs after the death of Muhammad. And Hezbollah is Shiite. Shiites go back to the family, the dynasty of Muhammad. And there has been a war of 1,400 years between Shiites and Sunnis. But in this case, Hezbollah, which is Shiite, and Hamas, which is Sunni, have united against a common enemy, Israel. And Iran is Shiite, and they are backing the Hezbollah, which is Shiite. And they have basically run Lebanon into the ground. Lebanon is basically a destroyed country because of these Shiites. So, we're going to have to see where it goes, because you have these are proxies. These are tentacles of the octopus, but Iran is the octopus.
Wow. And we, of course, have been hearing this a bit on the news in America, but in general, Iran has managed to stay in the background and quietly blame everything that's going on everybody else. And we just really need to know, I think, what the true picture is geopolitically. And I think most Americans don't understand what's going on.
Well, again, I want to go back to Russia. Russia is losing it. The last year and a half, the Russian military has been totally degraded. Iran is a proxy of Russia. Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. So all these things go together. I think the bottom line, if I understand correctly, not from the Israeli point of view, but from the globalist point of view, is that Hamas has to be neutralized. There has to be some kind of a more enlightened or welfare conscious government in Gaza. So Hamas has to go. Hezbollah, once it's removed, then there is a chance for Lebanon and the Lebanese economy to start lifting. They're starving in Lebanon. There's no food, there's no money, there's no gas, there's no nothing. The Iranians are fantastic people. The Iranians were allies of Israel and the Jewish people 3,500 years. This is not just, the whole thing about the Ayatollahs, they are an anomaly. They are an anomaly. They have to be removed also. So I think that it'll be a big defeat for Russia and China and North Korea. But listen, when the Soviet Union broke apart, you've got all these countries in Eastern Europe. They don't want to hear about Russia. They joined Europe. They joined the Western world. And, I don't want to say everyone loves America, but, America, praise God, is the greatest country on earth. It is the leader of the free world. And I think what we're seeing now is this attack on Saturday in Israel was a match that was lit and is starting a fire that's going to consume Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran. And the United States are our brothers and sisters, and we love America. We believe America will help us defend ourselves. But I think the bigger picture is to take out these three enemies of the United States and Western civilization and democracy. These are barbarians.
I'd like to ask you this. You mentioned a match to a fire, the invasion of Israel being a match to a fire, implying that a bigger fire could be in the offing. In other words, this is just the first little fire, Give us some understanding about who lit that match. Who was really behind that action?
Okay, well, you have to remember, Israel controlled Gaza. Israel had Jewish settlements in Gaza. And Ariel Sharon, when he became prime minister, he decided to pull all the Jewish settlements out of Gaza. And Ariel Sharon made a deal with the Arab world and with Gaza. We pull out from Gaza, you will not fire rockets at us. The problem is, the moment we pulled out, the rockets continued anyway. In other words, there's a word in Arabic, taqiyya. Taqiyya means that Muslims are allowed and commanded to lie to the enemy. So we are constantly being lied to. We've had 2 or 3 different military operations in Gaza to attack the people who are firing these missiles and terrorism. And each time we pull out, 2 or 3 years later, they have rebuilt their capabilities, and then they attack us again. This is never ending. And, the people in the south of Israel are complaining they don't have a life because every time Gaza decides to fire rockets. So this is something that the Israeli government has to terminate.
Wow.
This has to be terminated now. I'll say one more thing also. The United States, and I love the United States, have a very clear record of loving the United States more than any other country in the world. And, World War I, you had President Wilson. And America didn't want to get involved in a stupid European war. And for 3 years, America was successful in maintaining neutrality. And then finally, the Germans sank the Lusitania, and there was some kind of a correspondence with Mexico that they were going to take back territories which they felt America had stolen from them. And so America joined World War I in that last year and tipped the scales in favor of the Allies. World War II, some people say it started in September 1st, 1939, or in August 1939. But World War II started sooner than that because the Japanese were attacking in China, and Italy was attacking in Africa. There were things that were building up. And President Roosevelt did everything he could to stay out of the war. And he succeeded until December 7th, 1941. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And Admiral Yamamoto said, we have awakened the sleeping giant. Because America did not want to get into a war with Japan. And so what happened was America had to get into war. And I have to tell you something. People are saying negotiate. Can you imagine Roosevelt negotiating with the Japanese after Pearl Harbor? This was a battle to the finish. And when Hitler invaded Poland, Winston Churchill was told by the Germans, we have no problem with you. We don't want a war. But Winston Churchill said we're going to have a war because, can you imagine Winston Churchill surrendering? They offered him negotiations, and he said no. And I'll say another thing also. I know there may be some people viewing this program, saying, Israel's going to pulverize and kill 2 million Palestinians. Well, firstly, I don't believe that. I don't think that's going to happen. But you know what? Winston Churchill, at the end of World War II, you had the bombing of Dresden. In other words, everyone knew that the war was ending. And the British firebombed Dresden and killed, I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, destroyed Dresden completely. And they said to Winston Churchill, well, maybe there's some good Germans. And Winston Churchill said there is no such thing as a good German.
Wow.
So there are some people who look at the Muslims and say, as long as they've got this Nazi barbaric ideology of ISIS, there are no good Muslims. I want to believe that there are good Muslims, but you have to deal forcefully with the leadership of the terrorism.
And that is in the offing even as we speak. Avi, it's been great talking with you. And again, I wish we had all day to sit and talk like this, but I'd like for you to conclude by speaking to American Christians who love Israel and who love the Jews, and just give us a word and tell us what we can be praying for.
Well, firstly, because I believe in God, just like you guys do, there's a saying, may God's will be done on earth as in heaven. I believe God is in control. I believe that Israel will have the victory together with America. We are tied at the hip. I know people don't like when I talk like that, but I think that the United States and Israel are the greatest countries on earth. We are the real democracies. We're the only democracy in the Middle East. America is a country that everybody likes to attack, but then everybody wants to go live in America. Why is that? Because America is God's greatest country. So I just say, pray that God's will be done on earth as in heaven. I would like to see Christians being more proactive with senators and members of the House of Representatives and the White House and the military. I think that Christian churches need to teach much more about the role of Bible prophecy in their lives and in the lives of Israel and America. I think one of the problems in America is that today's Z generation, the youngest generation, they're not being taught properly, or they're being mistaught in schools and universities. And so the Christian churches have to pick up the cudgels and fight for better education and for prayer.
Well, Avi, it's been great talking with you, and we at Prophecy Watchers are doing everything we can to make sure that those prayers are well-formed and well-aimed in Israel's favor. You and your family be safe, and may God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Amen, and God save America.
Amen. I'm Gary Stearman. It's been good talking with Avi Lipkin.